Imagine a world where adventure awaits at every corner, and the plain stretches as far as the eye can see. That was Anna Emmaline McDoulet's world, better known in history as Cattle Annie. What drives a young girl out of the safety of her home to join a gang of outlaws? How does one teenager become legendary among cowboys? Of all of the Wild West stories, Cattle Annie has the most interesting one of all, from a poor little girl to another who used to ride with the Doolin-Dalton Gang. It's daring escapism at every turn. Join us as we explore the life of Cattle Annie, the choices and difficulties that shaped her path. Toward the turn of the 1800s, the American frontier was a wild and untamed place, full of excitement and danger. This story is about two teenage girls who became famous as outlaws in the Old West. Their fascination with the outlaw life pulled them into a world of adventure, crime, and eventually, change. Among the rolling plains and dusty trails of Oklahoma, a young girl named Anna Emmaline McDoulet was born in 1882. She later becomes known as Cattle Annie, striking fear and wonder across the West. Let's try and find out the reason why. Anna was born into a poor family, where life was tough right from the start. From a young age, she had to learn how to take care of herself. Her parents could hardly make both ends meet, and the family was always on the move, searching for work and a better life. Despite all the odds, Anna was a spirited and curious child. She had a deep love for stories about outlaws and adventures, the kind of tales whispered around campfires or shared in rowdy saloons. Eventually, Anna's family settled near the Cherokee Strip, a haven for outlaws and rustlers. It was here that Anna first encountered the world of cattle drives and the notorious gangs that roamed the territories. Now, as a teenager, Anna began working in a hotel that served the travelers coming through the frontier towns of Oklahoma. The establishment was much more than just a hotel. It was the meeting point for the cowboys, travelers, and the periodic outlaw. This lively environment was exciting for Anna. It was as if the stories she had read in novels had come to life. It was the land of 1,000 stories, and the stories that came from within those walls seemed to be the most interesting of all. Cowboys told of nothing but the endless stretches of cattle drives over miles and miles of plain, while outlaws wove tales of daring heists and close escapes from the law. Anna soaked it all in, fascinated by the idea of living outside the rules of society, a life full of adventure and excitement. The idea of living outside the bounds of normal society in a life of pure adventure intrigued the little girl. Before long, Anna became friends with another girl who shared her love for outlaws. Her name was Jennie Stevenson, who would later be known as Little Britches. Jennie and Anna spent hours talking about their dreams of escaping the ordinary and living lives full of thrill and adventure. They imagined themselves riding alongside the outlaws they admired, becoming legends in their own right. Anna and Jennie were openly admiring outlaws, most especially the Doolin-Dalton Gang, known far and wide for their bank robberies and talent for staying out of jail. The gang was led by the cunning Bill Doolin, a man as clever as he was ruthless. Bill Doolin was a charismatic leader, known for his sharp mind. His followers saw him as a man to be a leader, who could always outsmart the law, and he was respected, admired, and looked up to by his followers. Their exploits became legendary, and their daring escapes made them folk heroes fighting a corrupt system. To the girls, the gang seemed like heroes who lived by their own rules. They were inspired by the gang and began taking on their ways of life and appearance. They swapped traditional dresses to more practical pants and boots if they were to live such a rough life. This was a very bold step to take, as women in those days were expected to dress and act according to strict norms set out for them. The girls began to prepare themselves for the daring life they dreamed of. They believed that to live like outlaws, they needed the right skills. So they started learning how to shoot with accuracy, spending countless hours practicing until they could hit their targets with ease. Riding was another skill they took seriously, eventually becoming skilled enough to ride horses at high speeds, which would be crucial if they ever needed to make a quick escape. These changes were more than just learning new skills. They were a statement. By mastering these skills, Anna and Jennie were showing the world that they intended to live life on their own terms. It was the bold choices of Anna and Jennie that set them apart, and soon their growing involvement in the outlaw world came to the attention of those who were around them. Thus, their journey into the heart of the Wild West began, and they were out to make a name for themselves. They started taking bigger risks, selling whiskey to Native Americans, which was illegal at the time, and stealing horses, a serious crime on the frontier. By day, they held regular jobs, but by night, they were outlaws. It was their charisma that they managed to survive the dangers of their chosen life. Driven by their fascination, the two girls decided to move from mere observers to active participants in the outlaw world. Their involvement began in small ways. but their cleverness and resourcefulness quickly set them apart. Their first try into the world of outlaws was through helping the gangs with communication. At a time when law enforcement relied heavily on word of mouth and telegraphs, Anna and Jennie's ability to pass messages discreetly was invaluable. They used their appearances to their advantage, blending into towns and gathering information without drawing suspicion. Anna was incredibly detail-oriented and had a knack for reading people. She spent a lot of time hanging around saloons and general stores, carefully listening to conversations. Her ability to pick up on small details allowed her to gather valuable inside information from what she overheard between townsfolk, lawmen, and travelers. With her angelic face, Annie managed to blend in easily. There was no way anyone would ever think that a little girl was siding with notorious outlaws. This served her intentions well, as she matched the description of the most secretive person. She could get more vital information on their planned raids and posse gathering points and the camping places of the lawmen. She would then secretly pass this information to the gang she was working with, helping them stay one step ahead of the law. By 1895, Cattle Annie and Little Britches were known throughout most of the Oklahoma Territory for their actions with the Doolin-Dalton Gang. Their bold acts had turned them into folk heroes of sorts at this time, but all this publicity brought them many lawmen to have them put behind bars. Realizing that the pressure was increasing, Anna and Jennie knew that they had to be more careful as the authorities neared. The pressure increased, but the ladies continued to be on the side of their gang by using their ways to gather information and continuing their work. But then their luck was running out. In August of that year, Anna and Jennie were hiding out in a remote cabin near Pawnee, Oklahoma. The cabin was away from the public eye and the control of the law, a place that could temporarily help them pull together to get ready to stay away from the authorities at all times. But unknown to these girls, the law was getting nearer than they ever thought. Marshal Bill Tillman, a legendary lawman, had received a tip about their location from an anonymous source. Tillman and his deputies set out to find the notorious duo, ending their exploits once and for all. Knowing that their hideout had been discovered, Anna and Jennie were on high alert as the lawmen approached. The two girls knew they had to be on their feet at all times. Jennie, who was known for her quick thinking and resourcefulness, decided to make a run for it. She burst out of the cabin, hoping to slip away into the surrounding wilderness. That gesture by Jennie was quite very bold, and she then quickly had an encounter with law enforcers. Deputies finally caught her, and after a struggle, they finally took her into custody. Her bravery was undeniable, but she was overpowered by the seasoned deputies. Inside the cabin, Anna was facing a similar situation. However, the deputies had anticipated this move and had stationed several men around the cabin. As Anna emerged, she was swiftly taken into custody. Now, both the girls were taken to jail. Their capture marked the end of their outlaw days, and their story quickly spread across the country. Many were fascinated by the tale of two young girls who had dared to live as outlaws in a man's world. Following their dramatic capture near Pawnee, trials were secured for both Anna McDoulet and Jennie Stevenson. Both girls showed remarkable boldness during court hearings, in spite of their tender age and the gravity of the charges. Both of them seemed to enjoy all the attention given to them during their trial and made no apologies for their actions. Both openly admitted to the court their association with the Doolin-Dalton Gang and stated that they felt proud to be a part of this notorious gang. The attitude of the girls surprised many in the audience. Most of them were expecting at least remorse, if not a little fear. They took their outlaw identity and pride and proceeded to turn the courtroom into a stage for their rebellious spirit. They were convicted of several crimes, including horse theft and buying liquor for natives. But this act of disobedience did not come lightly with the law. Both of them were found guilty of their crimes and sent to the Farmington Reform School in Massachusetts. The court was hoping for them to have an opportunity at the Reform School to rehabilitate and start anew. They were given a very strong punishment with a combined sentence of 10 years. The goal of sending them to the Reform School was to help them leave their outlaw past behind and build a better future for themselves. The Reform School was designed to rehabilitate young people, giving them a chance to learn new skills and adjust to society. They were treated with great compassion at the Farmington Reform School and given a chance to learn and grow. The institution was education-oriented and rehabilitative in nature, thus providing the girls with a foundation for a highly controlled environment in which they would grow new skills. Both girls showed some promise in their days at the reformatory school. They learned useful practical skills like sewing and cooking, which would then later help them earn jobs once they were released. The experience was life-changing for them, as Anna and Jennie slowly came to terms with life away from the world of outlaws. Jennie was released after about a year, and Annie's health issues earned her a release a few months later. Both found themselves in an environment that limited freedom yet presented an opportunity to think things over on earlier decisions. After serving their sentences, Anna and Jennie went their separate ways, each trying to build a new life. Anna moved to New York City, where she worked as a seamstress and later married. She lived a quiet and peaceful life, far from the wild days of her youth. In 1901, she married Earl Frost, and the couple had 2 children together. Anna embraced her role as a wife and mother, focusing on creating a nurturing environment for her family. Jennie also found a new path, marrying and settling down. She worked hard to put her past behind her, focusing on her family and the future. For both of them, their post-criminal lives were marked by efforts to distance themselves from their outlaw pasts and build new identities. Their stories serve as powerful examples of transformation, showing how individuals can learn from their past experiences and create meaningful futures. History records Cattle Annie and Little Britches as being 2 of the most unusual female outlaws of their day, families included. Their lives are the proof of what legends are made of, with a rebellious nature. The fascination with Cattle Annie and Little Britches has lasted because they represent female strength against society's expectations. Though Cattle Annie was an outlaw for a very short period, the impact she left on history cannot be erased. She gave testimony that even the finest deeds of courage and commitment can, when times are desperate, make all the difference in history. Now, imagine yourself riding alongside Cattle Annie, feeling the wind in your hair and the thrill of the open road before you. Would you have the courage to live by your own rules? To chase freedom no matter the cost? Don't forget to share your views in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed this tale of Cattle Annie's adventures. If you like this video, then you shouldn't miss this video about the great train robbery heist that changed Britain forever.